Wolves 0, Fulham 0. A scorching morning, as you can see by my cheeks. I'm going to put some sunscreen on sat in the North Bank because I was certainly getting a little bit burnt. I feel that we started the game quite well and had quite a few chances. But I think that's where it ended really in terms of chances created. In the first half there was a few, but in the second half there was barely anything, and it feels to me like different system but same old problems. I don't know if that's going to be alleviated when we sign a number 9 or when Raul comes back or whatnot, but it just felt a little bit samey for me. And the front four individually, we know they're good players, but I think that is the problem. I think they're playing too individualistic. They're all trying to do too much every time they get on the ball. Podence and Gibbs-White mostly. I thought Neto had a fairly decent game. The Podence and Gibbs-White, they're taking too much time on the ball, and those plays in between them have to be sharp. They have to be one touch and they go. And I think that can be said for the most of the side. I thought Kilman and Collins were excellent. Looks like the start of a really good partnership. I thought the fullbacks were poor. Aït-Nouri had another poor game. Of course, gave away the penalty, which from where I was sat didn't look like a penalty, but I think his reaction would suggest that it probably did clip him, getting on the wrong side, not good enough. And I thought Johnny had a poor game too, especially in the second half. Cabano was running at him and predominantly right-footed, and he's just letting him skip past him and just hanging a leg out. He looked lazy. I don't know whether he was tired or not. The heat may have played a part, but not moving the ball around quick enough. And you know, we've got Jose Sarr to thank for a point today. I think if Fulham would have scored that and gone on to win the game, I think Molineux would have turned. I think it would have been a very toxic place with Gorgang Chow and Jorge Mendes in attendance. Maybe the wake-up call that they need. I don't think we necessarily played too badly. I think we controlled the game, but we're just not creating enough gilt-edged chances, and when we do, we're not putting the ball in the back of the net. And you know, it's the hardest thing to do in football, but yeah, it just feels a little bit samey. But they've got to play the ball out with a lot more zip. I thought when Traoré came on, I've seen some fans criticise him, but the team weren't really holding the width, him included, and that's where he's best. He's best dragged out wide and getting in a 1v1 versus a fullback, and it just didn't happen. So I don't know. It's a real frustrating one. I'm not concerned, but unless we address the centre forward issue, then I'm not really sure where we go from here. I'm seeing some fans say, well, it's a point more than we had in the opening 3 fixtures last year, but look at the calibre of opponents we're playing. We played United and Spurs, I believe, the last time, and Leicester. So, you know, they're better teams than what we faced in the first two, but a point's a point. It could have been even worse, but we move on to Spurs on next Saturday, which is going to be a whole different kettle of fish. But hopefully Moutinho's back for that one and we can go with a 4-3-3.
So we're back like we never left, and an opportunity missed, I think. You know, a newly promoted side coming up. Yes, he had a decent result last week that any of us would have taken, but I feel like that was one that we could have really gone for today. And we did try in elements. We had some players that played well. I think we had some good performances in there, scattered about. The likes of Gibbs-White, I thought, showed a lot of passion and aggression, which is always good to see, considering the speculation with his contract talks and Forest interest and things like that. But it was just a case of not being able to break down a stubborn Fulham side today. We're desperately missing a striker. I think that's clear to anyone. So it's just a case of getting the checkbook out, and the theme of the window this year has been overspending for your target. So if that's what needs to be done, then I think that's the next step. I think we score goals with a striker in this team. We're just missing that final touch and missing the cutting edge as and when we need it in those key elements of the pitch, key moments in the game. There were some poor performances I think today. In particular, the fullbacks. I thought Johnny looked out of character. He looked slow, couldn't go up with the pace of the game. I think Cabano had him on toast virtually the entirety of the game. He had a decent spell of about 20 minutes relatively early on, but it was relatively poor overall. Aït-Nouri looked shoddy at times, careless in possession. again, similar to Johnny, struggled to get to grips with the game and ended up conceding the penalty, which was saved by Jose Sarr, which is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, his first penalty save in a Wolves shirt. So that should give him a bit of confidence in future when he causes some himself with his erratic goalkeeping. But we should be good. We should be okay. I mean, I think we're a couple of signings away from a really, really positive season, but it could be a shaky start. With the speed of our transfer activity, I'm expecting a bit of a shaky start again, which could cause for some pressure for Bruno. But there's something there. There's something there to work on. Definitely, it's just a case of tidying up in the final stages of the pitch. But yeah, 0-0 could have been 1-0 to Fulham, could have been 3-1 to us. So it's. I don't know whether I would have taken a draw, but we'll take it and move on, and we'll see what we can do at Spurs. All right, cheers, lads.
Afternoon, talking Wolves. Yeah, it's, don't know what to think of that one too much, to be honest. Not a bad performance, but same story in front of goal, isn't it? Just no cutting edge. We desperately need a striker. Silly penalty giveaway from Aitnery, which he's got to get better at, because playing as a fullback, you're going to be in that defensive position a lot more than when he's playing wing back. I thought Johnny was caught out a lot as well as a fullback. Again, used to playing wing back maybe, but not great. Yeah, I just think we look a bit lost today, really, especially in the last 20 minutes pushing for a goal. We seem to have nothing. Seem to lose our heads a little bit. Should have been 3-0 up in the first few minutes, shouldn't we, really? Let's not take anything away from that. 3 very good chances and no goals again. I suppose you can't take away from that we've actually created a few chances for a change, but if you're not scoring them, what's the point? Same old story. Neto, what's he doing with that open goal? I mean, just be honest, just hit the target and you've scored a goal. I don't know what he's done. I need to watch it again, really, but overall, performance not bad. No goals. Jose Sarr, nice to see him save a penalty to break that duct a little bit, because obviously he hadn't saved one yet. So, small positives, not great. I know they drew with Liverpool last week, but you still expect to beat them, don't you, really? Let's be honest, at home, that's another game without a goal at home. So, let's see if we can get some more before the end of the season. Positive to see us do okay, but until we start scoring goals, it's the same old story.
Wolves 0, Fulham 0. A lot to build on for that, I think. I don't think it's a bad point in the overall, in the end, really. I think obviously we've sort of give away a penalty in the last 10 minutes, sloppy by Aitnery, but when there's a penalty missed, you almost take a point at that stage of the game. Positives for me, I thought Kilman, Collins were absolutely phenomenal. I think that's a centre-half partnership, like I've said on the podcast, that can be our centre-half partnership for years. Look really assured. Mitrovic gave Van Dijk and Matip kittens last week, and we've dealt with him really, really well for the 90 minutes. Another positive for me is definitely Dendoncker. He gets a lot of stick online, sometimes rightly so, but you got to almost hand what I've been thinking for a long time is, if you give him a bit of consistency, play him in his right position, you start seeing the best of him. And I thought he had a really good game today, very combative, did the simple things well. And yeah, like you say, on another day, we could be 2 or 3 up at half time. Neto's missed a couple of good chances. Gibbs White in the second half as well. We desperately need a striker. And yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? It's one of those things of, if you don't take your chances at this level, you get punished, and we almost did. So we've got to sort of take that on into next week against Tottenham. It's going to be a really hard game. I think we're probably 3 points down where I thought we would be after 2 games. So anything we get next week, I hate the cliche of being a bit of a bonus, but I think, you've got to be a good team to go to Tottenham this season and get something. So yeah, it'll be one of those things. I think, there's definitely stuff to improve on, stuff to work on. I thought that Guedes, when he came on, looked quite lively. I thought Hwang first half was very good and completely dropped off in the second half. But yeah, there's stuff to work on. It's not all doom and gloom. Yeah, you can see it's sort of teething problems, I think. It's trying to gel, just not quite doing it at the moment. But I think if you had a striker in there who can genuinely put the ball in the back of the net, a bit of a goal threat, we're going to be absolutely fine. I think, Yeah, like you say, I think all Wolves fans are probably predicting a mid-table finish, and I can't see it's being any worse than that.
So, another frustrating result to start the season. Wolves 0, Fulham 0 for the first game back at Molineux. And again, another showcase of what we're lacking, and that is potency and a centre forward. The lack of a focal point, again, really rearing its ugly head as we really kind of struggled to get a foothold, particularly in the second half. I thought the first half, keeping the same 11, that fluid front three of Juan Pinence and Neto worked pretty well. We exploited the space that Fulham left in behind the fullbacks. Neto should have scored, obviously, after that Rodak mistake. And again, Pinence from that same chance, missing from about 8 to 10 yards. It's unforgivable, especially at this level. You have to take your chances, and that's something that Wolves don't do. They either don't create chances or they don't score the chances they do create. So in that sense, we're kind of losing on both sides. I do think that the defence was particularly the highlight. I thought Kilman and Collins in particular were very, very good, very solid, nullified Fulham very well. Mitrovic barely had a sniff. And again, Pereira, Cabano didn't really get into the game much, neither did De Corva-Reid. So I think we did well to stop Fulham from really having anything in midfield or in attack. But I think our real problem areas were the fullbacks again. Johnny and Aït-Nouri, very average. Aït-Nouri giving away the penalty, did okay going forward, but again, I don't think his end product was anything special. Defensively, I thought he was mediocre or just, average for the most part. He got some good tackles in, didn't get beaten too much, but looked shaky at points, and then gave away the penalty, of course, which kind of begs the question why we're not looking at a left-back. I know press reports, or good press reports, are showing that we're looking at a centre mid and a centre forward. I think a left-back has to be looked at because Bueno, I don't think he's Premier League ready, and Aït-Nouri just doesn't look that solid in a four at the back. Time will tell whether he can adapt, but we can't afford for individual mistakes to cost us a game, and it nearly did again for the second week in a row. So that's something that has to be looked into. I thought Sarr, though, excellent save from the penalty. Solid game all round from him. Midfield, Dendoncker and Neves kept things ticking nicely. I thought that this was one of Dendoncker's better games that I've seen him play. Thought he won the ball back very often, kept us ticking, recycled possession well. There's a couple of times where he could have maybe played the ball forward a bit more, but I think overall he was solid. And Neves, again, his creativity and his passing range showcased once more. He was definitely, the metronome. Interesting to see him as a single pivot with Dendoncker joining in with the front four. I thought was quite interesting. So he essentially had 5 players converging on the Fulham penalty area. But again, somehow we still seem to have a lack of options in the penalty area, which baffles me. I'm sure it'll baffle Bruno Lage as well, but it's going to be his tricky job to try and sort this goal drought out, because it is a bit of a concern. I thought Gibbs-White off the ball was very solid, good pressure. I think he needs to cool his head a little bit, but you can't question his commitment. Constantly chasing the ball, looks feisty, looked decent on the ball. I think things didn't really come off for him today, and of course he did miss that chance. Same thing with Pedro Neto, really. I thought he worked hard and was direct with his play, but again, the end product and the chance creation was kind of average again. You could pretty much describe the whole team as average at this point. Hwang faded after about 20-25 minutes once again. Kind of highlights the issues with him. He shows good bursts of pace and technical ability, but he does fade far too easily out of games. Guedes came on, same with Traore and Semedo. They also came on, but really struggled to get anything going. Traore was non-existent. Semedo was okay, he did his job. And Guedes, I think, struggled a little bit, really. But I think that in the second half, the whole team as a whole struggled to create anything, and we were getting hacked down a lot. And I think that was probably the main issue in the second half, was Fulham clearly playing for a point, time wasting, and the referee, again, not getting a hold of the game. We saw this with Brentford at home last season, just going down at every opportunity, trying to get fouls. It's not something I personally agree with. I know that Wolves do the same thing. I personally don't like it. It's not enjoyable to watch. I think that there is a certain element to having a dark arts to your team, but if you're doing it too much, it just completely kills the spectacle. And I think the ball was probably out of play more than it was in play in that second half. Yet again, the referee struggling to get a hold on the game. I thought Gibbs-White and Mitrovic were both lucky not to get sent off. I thought Mitrovic in particular, having hacked down Gibbs-White and then reacting and leaning in with his head, I think for me that's 2 bookable offences, a bit like Martinelli for Arsenal last season. So I think you can I I suppose you could maybe excuse Wolves in the second half because Fulham were really doing their best to take the pace and the momentum out of the game, and that made it very difficult for us to get any sort of free-flowing attacking transitions or any attacking chances going. But I think that it shows that we have to invest in a centre forward and a progressive midfielder. I think at some points the gap between the midfield and the forward line was still too big, and I thought that the fact that there was no one to really cross the ball into because there's no real height in the team going forward, I think was a big issue as well. I think Bruno obviously wants to play with sort of more inverted wingers or wingers that are going to drive inside. For that to work, you're going to have a target man who can hold up the ball and play it in for them. At the moment, we're kind of struggling to have a bit of an identity at this point because we don't have that centre forward that we need. So plenty of things to work on. I think some solid performances here and there, but overall the lack of goals is a huge concern. We've got to get a left back, we've got to get a centre mid, we've got to get a centre forward. Plenty to improve on. There's time to do it. It's a young side, but signings have to be made.
It's finished here at Molineux 0-0. My dad has joined me for the game. Post-match review. It's a very frustrating game to watch. We just kept trying to get forward, had nothing clinical. We had Neto miss the open goal, which for me was one of the biggest parts of the game. From where I sat, for me wasn't a penalty, but obviously I couldn't. We didn't get no VAR check straight away, so it was a bit of a tough one to take. But you know what, Jose Sá saved it, so good on him. He got it under his belt, so he actually has now saved a penalty. He hasn't given a penalty away. But yeah, I just want to say it was one of those games where we're still missing that striker like build to run in the box and just get the shot on goal. Don't get me wrong, Wang tried better today, but just wasn't good enough. Guedes came on, got into space, but I don't think he was getting fed as much as he would probably wanted to. But for me, I think Neto should be banging that instead of trying to get the pass. It was pretty much an open goal. He knew as soon as he missed that opportunity that how much that was a golden opportunity for us to get in the lead, and I feel like the game would have been so much different on a 1-0 going in. I think it was in the first half, so that would have been so much more to come out 2-4. But you know, it's not anything different from the last few home games that we've came up to, so we just got to keep plodding on and hope we have a kick up the arse and get moving. What do you think, Dad? What do you think?
We just don't play very well.
It's just one of them. We've just got to keep our head up and move on to the next game, I guess. And Gibbs White, fair play to the geezer. He tried everything he could to just try and win the ball and fight for it. He's, like you say, he's one of our own, and he showed that today. So, like I say, frustrating game, and every time they had the ball, they tried to waste it. It's just one of those where we just need to start scoring goals so we can then get behind the team and just push it in the right direction. But as you can tell, it is a sweaty one today. I am absolutely sweating. But like I say, hopefully we can get the win in our next game, and cheerio.